Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Darren. This is JP. We're from Rocker. And we're talking to you today because we have validated and brought to market hundreds of digital products in practically every industry, and for companies of all sizes, from solo founders to Fortune 100 businesses. And the point of today is to help you skip many of the costly lessons that we've learned along the way. Specifically, what we want to focus on today is looking at why most corporate innovation efforts fail, and looking at the most valuable innovation asset that you can build, which a lot of people don't talk about, and then how to think like a startup with a traction first approach. So let us start then. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong window. Yeah. So let us start today with what we're going to focus on specifically in this presentation. The problem that we see that a lot of people take is that they take a very solution first approach to their innovation program. And for us, that's like running the dice because you have no idea of what you really need to bet on in order to create value with the digital product that you're building. Um, in our experience, the solution is to focus on the problem first. And that's why we're going to focus on that conversation today, specifically with an understanding of what we call jobs to be done theory and practice, to understand first and foremost the problem in detail before you go ahead and start even thinking about building a solution. For us, what we've seen again, time and time again, is that when you focus on the problem, when you invest on the problem first before you turn to the solution, that is the way that you can achieve traction and effective innovation, which will have a meaningful impact on your bottom line as a business. And that's what we're going to be walking you through today, including some of the case studies from different clients that we've worked with and some of the painful lessons they've learned, which we want you to learn from.
So let me start by kind of painting a picture here. And this is a scene from, I would say, my favorite movie called The Brothers Bloom. And you can see there Stephen looking a little bit bloomy and Bloom. And in this scene, Bloom does a card trick to Stephen. And it's basically he has a card deck and says, pick and think of a card. And he just cuts and shuffles and cuts the cards in two and shows him a card, and it's just the card you were thinking of. And Steven says, no. And Steven says, you always do this trick and it never works. And Bloom looks at him and is like, yeah, but one day I will get it right and it will be the best trick in the world. And this is a little bit of how we feel when you decide to take an idea first approach. And this concept of like, being super lean because you're going to have to change a lot. So just build something, bring it to market as soon as possible and try to see if you can make it
Throw it
work.
at the wall and
And
see if it sticks. Exactly.
yeah, right. And if you do that, it is proven statistically that only 26% of the times, whatever you throw to the wall will stick. And we know this because around 74% of startups fail because there is no market need for the product that they've built. And the way to read into that stat is the market is telling you that the product idea that you came up with and delivered does not address the need that they have. There is no market need. Your solution is not good enough. Right? And those are the stats. It's not it's hard fact. Your chances are very, very, very low. And the reason why is because we focus on a solution without understanding the real problem. And we start immediately talking to people about this great idea that you've had with this solution that you're bringing to market. And people are typically very positive about it. And we can talk a little bit about that maybe later in the presentation, where people are so positive when you present something new and then when you bring it to market, nobody wants to use it. But that has to do with human behavior and how we behave in front of other people. And this idea of focusing on the solution without understanding the problem is basically disabling yourselves from being able to design a good solution. To give you an idea, we get engaged a lot with corporates and startups and sometimes even funds that have an idea and have a concept of a product that they want to build, and they come to us. And I think never in our life have we eventually delivered the scope that we were originally briefed on, the product idea. I'll give you some examples today about that, but
Totally. Yeah.
never, okay? The word is never. We've never really delivered on the original brief and concept. Let me showcase that with a little bit of a case study. And I call this case study Lazy Kids. I can't tell you what the company was, but not long ago, was it maybe a year, 2 years ago?
Mm.
We got engaged by a company that was looking into the use of AI to help kids better apply themselves in school, I would
Yeah, that's
say,
a good way to
at
put
the
it.
time.
Yeah.
And they were particularly wanting to use AI to understand where kids were getting behind, in what classes they were getting behind, and have AI, um, I would say, give kids more homework so that they could catch up, right? We meet with them. This is a great idea. Love the concept. Let us look into it, right? And we use a problem first approach where we never talk about our solution with users, and we go and talk with what we call masters. And it's people that really understand very well how to get kids to apply themselves in school, right? And right at the start of it, I really get lost into these interviews, and I'm talking to this teacher that helps like several kids that were, problem kids apply
Yeah.
themselves and
Yeah, I remember this.
finish
Yeah.
school, and you know, um, and I realized that we were not at any time talking about what I thought was being a teacher, right? Being a teacher is like teaching the kids what they need to know and being engaging when they present, and and he was talking about having conversations with these kids and talking about what they want out of life. And all of these teachers told us in the first 3 seconds of an interview, it's like it'll take me a day to know which kid is going to get behind, will be left behind. It doesn't take a long time to figure it out. Which
Hmm.
kids are not paying attention immediately. So the first like feature, which was like you know being able to know which kid is going to it's going to go behind, it's like that's you know worthless. Teachers, good teachers know, right? um and then
Well, that's a good point
I
because I just
talked.
want to highlight. I just want to highlight there that basically what they had identified as a part of the problem was actually not a problem at all, and that if
Not a
they had
problem at all.
gone ahead to build that solution, no one would have found any value in it really because there is no need there. There's no real market need, which is exactly what you were speaking about a couple slides ago, right?
Exactly, right? But when we talked with masters and we talked with this like professors that will help these kids design a vision of themselves in the future and what they want to be, and this was this kid that wanted to work in Formula One, and you know this teacher created all this story behind it and told him how important it was for him to learn physics, and how important it was for him to um, complete all these courses, and he kind of put school into context of a human being,
Exactly.
right? Because school
Yeah.
today is a hand me down. It's something that parents give to kids and that kids need to do. And the best thing that could happen is they don't fail. I want to say that again. The best thing that could happen to a kid regarding school is that they don't fail. Instead of school being a tool to help them realize their dreams.
Hmm.
And that was a moment of real insight and understanding of what the problem was, especially because we separate the market and we talk to masters and then we talk to strugglers. And strugglers are teachers that can't get those kids to engage. And some of those teachers were, you know, they were very direct with us. They said,
Mm.
within the first 2 or 3 classes, I know which ones are the ones that are going to get left behind. And, some kids are lazy, they told me. Some kids are just lazy. Doesn't matter how much homework you give them, they're lazy. They want to play football. They want to do sports. They don't care about, literature or physics or maths.
Hmm.
They just don't care. And it was a diametrically opposed situation from the masters where, they made it their job to inspire those kids to study those courses.
Yeah.
And the key here is that there are no lazy kids. There's just a bunch of kids that don't understand how school can help them achieve their dreams. Some of them don't even
Yeah.
have a dream, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And we heard about that that too in our interviews, where they really had to work with the kid to try to figure out what their dream was and how to put school into context. So when we did all this research, we came to the conclusion that building the tool that we were originally scoped for would not give that company any traction regarding the product. So we
Yeah.
built something completely different. And we built a tool that helps kids use artificial intelligence to help kids figure out what they want to be in their life. What is their dream? And build a dream. And then put that going to school in context with that dream. An example would be, I want to be a rally car driver. Great. I'll show you a video of Michael Schumacher when he was 12 going around the corners on a go-kart. And you can see all the kids leaning into the curve. And Michael Schumacher is leaning out of the curve. And the reason why he's leaning out is because if you lean out, you put more pressure onto those wheels, onto the outer wheels, and you can take a corner faster.
I think.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I think what's important here is tying it back to what you said, right? We never end up building the thing that we were originally briefed on, because that thing is always based on a very superficial understanding of the problem, if at all. Rather, it's usually
No,
someone's pet idea or a pet, thing that they've got some concept of that they think would be good, but it has not yet been validated. And that's the important thing. And when people make the leap to build a product based on that level of insight, it never goes well. Never goes
yeah,
well. You saw the
yeah,
stats, 74% of companies fail, right? Because there is not a real market need. And so that's why there is the process that we went through is so valuable, because it did bottom out what was really the problem, what was really going on, and what what would actually create value if we were to solve it for teachers and for children in school. That's the key
yeah.
takeaway there.
And let me do one last thing here. If we would have grabbed that concept and we would have talked with professors, with teachers about this concept, I am not sure we would have got bad reviews from it.
Mm,
You know, yeah, maybe one feature or two features will be pushed out, but in general, people are very positive with somebody's dream, somebody's idea. Um, and if you start with a concept, it's very, very, very difficult to move out of it in that conversation, to be able to abstract yourself to a point that you're really understanding what the problem is. The problem with school and with kids that get laid behind is that school is a hand me down from parents. And the best thing that could happen is that they don't fail. They do not put school into the context of what they want to be in life. Some of them don't even know what they want to be in life or don't even have a dream. Because don't get me wrong, having a dream of being an astronaut doesn't mean that you're going to be an astronaut, but it'll give you the drive to do the things that you need to do. And that dream might change over time. We're not talking
exactly.
about, writing this on stone and from now on you have to go and do this, right? It's about having a goal. And that's what the problem is. But once you know and understand that, it's very easy to get rid of your original idea and build something that could really make an impact.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
in that way, innovation doesn't need to be a running of the dice. Your chances could be a lot better than just 26%. Let me explain a little bit of how we do that. And the first thing that we do is we use a theory called jobs to be done, which allows us to understand the market before we present people with an idea. Now, I'm going to stop here, and this is very important because I've spoken before with market market researchers. A lot of people have told me it's impossible to understand the market without presenting them with the idea that you want to build. The only way of getting the market to give you feedback is to present an idea. And that is not true. Okay? It's simply not true. And in jobs to be done theory, the concept works under the idea that your customers are not interested in buying your product. They're hiring you to get a job done. In other words, people don't want a 1/4-inch drill bit. What they want is a 1/4-inch hole in the wall. They're looking for an outcome. Making a hole in the wall is a tangible outcome, right? So the first thing that you want to try to do is make sure that you nail what that outcome is, right? As I said before, the startup was trying to make sure the kids apply themselves in school, that they get the most out of school, that school is a positive thing for them, right? That they're getting value from it. When you understand that outcome, then you can go and study the ways in which people make a hole in the wall, or in which teachers help kids apply themselves in school or get the best out of school, right? And it's in the studying of that process, right, that kind of the light is turned on in the room. I say, solution first approach is a dark room where you just kind of like closing your eyes and hoping that you're designing something nice.
Yeah, just
But
groping
when you
around,
use
really.
jobs to be, yeah, you're just, hoping for the best. And that's why only 26% of them stick, right? Because it's hard and you need to be lucky or brilliant. You could be brilliant. There's some people that are brilliant. I'm not saying they're not. Me personally, I like to turn the light on. It's a lot easier. And with jobs to be done, you will start to understand what parts of that process is so difficult. E.g., identifying which kids are going to get behind in the class is not a difficult thing, and you should not be concentrating on a feature that does that. Giving kids more homework is not a difficult thing. It's getting the kids to pay attention that is the complicated thing. And that's where you need to start putting your brain around the solution. How can we get kids to pay attention? Well, how do good teachers that get kids to pay attention do it?
Exactly.
Study that and then turn that into a product. That's what jobs to be done allows you to do.
I think I want to add here that we talked in the beginning about the asset that you really want to be investing in when it comes to your innovation, and from our standpoint, the asset that you want to invest in is what we call this job map, right? It's this
Yeah.
understanding of what these so-called masters are doing in order to get the outcome that we're talking about here. What are the steps that they follow? And being able to document that comprehensively, because that is going to give you the starting point for understanding the next step, which is how do people who are not masters actually struggle to get that done today? Because as we've talked about in other webinars, the difference between a master and a struggler is your product, right? Your product is filling the gap. It's the thing that turns a struggler into a master. And so we need to understand what are the different ways in that process, what are the different steps at which each one of those strugglers is either finding it difficult in some way, or it's taking too long, or it's too expensive, or whatever it is, right? And that's where we can come in and we can create a solution that simplifies, speeds up, makes the outcome easier, etc. It's not
Yeah.
more complicated than that. I mean, we're talking about why is something hard, and what can we do to make
Yeah.
that easier at the end of the day.
But you need to know what it is hard, right? And
Exactly.
this
Yeah.
polarization of the market between strugglers and masters is very important. It's a concept that you really need to click on, and it takes some time. But basically what we're saying here is, in the world, when you're looking at an objective in particular, for example, making a hole in the wall or helping kids apply themselves in school, there are two types of teachers or two types of handyman. The ones that do it well and the ones that struggle. The ones that
Exactly.
struggle, we call them the market. Typically, people would struggle. And the ones that are masters is people that have 20 years in the industry. that got the gist of it, understood what it is to be of being a teacher, what it is to be a handyman, and is what is the best way to put a hole in the wall. You know, when you see a professional doing something, it's like, oh, I would have first measured from why are they, and then you realize that they have this method that is simple, that is fast, and that gets the job done super well. So what we do is we first talk to those masters about their process, and we document their process in detail. And then when we go to the stragglers, which is the market, and remember, the definition of a market is a group of people that are trying to get an objective done. They're trying to get an outcome done, e.g., making
Yeah.
a hole in the wall. They're finding it difficult, and they're open to new solutions, right? If they're finding it difficult, means that they're not masters. So you need to be very careful when you're designing a solution with someone that is not a master. You shouldn't. They don't even know what good looks like. They can't
Exactly.
put a good hole in the wall. They don't know how to inspire kids. They say kids are lazy. You know, it's a way of taking the problem completely out of your hands. This is not about me. It's the
Mm-hmm.
kids. They're lazy. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
It's
so
funny because
you need
we've
to.
actually heard that in so many other product contexts, haven't we? It's not just
I've
this
had.
one. Mm.
I had a lot of people that said that their product failed because the target audience was lazy, and it's so wrong. The target audience is not lazy. They're just telling you that what you're offering them is not worth their time. It's the same as kids in school. I don't want to do math because it's not worth my time. I prefer going and playing football. Why? Because I don't know why I'm studying math.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make sense. So when your users don't download your app and don't create accounts, it's not because they're lazy. It's because your offer is not good enough.
Yeah. And I think in that context, you can really see like for a child who's sort of just, you're just going along to your maths class, but there's no context. There's no sense of like mastery or progress or autonomy or agency or anything that would make it feel like a fulfilling and rewarding activity for you at all.
Totally.
It's just do problems 1 to 25 and then submit. It's like, why? I don't
The
understand. I'd
best
much
thing
rather
that
be
could
doing something else.
happen, exactly, the best thing that could happen is that you don't fail.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Mm.
You know, the
Yeah.
objective is not to fail in school. It has nothing to do with your development. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Let me go
It's
back
bad.
to
And I
this.
think,
So,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I think, yeah, back to the point. Back to the point.
So the point that we were making is that we talk to masters, we document their process very well. We grab all those little details and that nuance of how they do things, and then we sit with strugglers and we talk with strugglers only about one thing: their last experience or the last two experiences that they had when they were trying to make a hole in the wall, or they were trying to help a kid apply themselves in school. And we said, "Oh, you had a problem kid that you were tell me about him. You know, what happened?"
Hmm.
And then we just, the same way we did it, we just document what they're doing and we compare the two. We never ask a struggler, what would you think about this product that does this? We don't. we
Not at
are
this
we
stage,
try to
anyway.
do,
Yeah.
not at this stage. What we
Mm.
do is we try to observe, given that we can't be in class, we can't see him, we don't have video of him putting a hole in the wall. We can ask about
Hmm.
that experience, and they always people go like up and to the right. No, because always when I do, I make sure that the battery is. It's like, I don't want to know about your always. I want to know about Thursday when you try to put a hole in the wall. What happened Thursday? Tell me the story. And we abstract completely from our product idea, and we talk to strugglers about what they know, which is their experience. They can't
Hmm.
tell you anything about a new solution. They don't know how to design a drill, and they will never give you a real, you know, good solution because they're not versed in it. They don't know how to make a hole in the wall. It makes the interview so much easier, and the insight that you get from it is miles away from having a chat about a product idea. And that allowed
Yeah.
us, in the case of the EdTech project, to understand what the problems were so that we could look into reinventing those features.
I think that's the
Let me give you
point that
another
we're
case
making.
study.
Well, just
Yeah,
before you
go
do
ahead.
that, I just want to make the point that when we talk about investing in the problem, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about investing in an understanding of the real market need, so that you are in a position to understand which problems to solve, so that you can create value for people, so that you can create something that's going to appeal to them and be compelling, so that you're going to create something that's going to turn strugglers into masters once they have your product in their hands. That's the key. So that's what it's no. Obviously, you're going to invest in the solution at some point, but what we're talking about here is investing in the problem first before you do anything else, in order to ensure the ultimate success of whatever it is that you're building. That's the big takeaway there.
And a complete understanding of that problem also will give you a roadmap, right? You don't have to
Totally.
tackle all the problems in one go. You
Yeah.
can have a whole product roadmap behind it, and the product roadmap is based on those problems. We're going to solve this problem first, this problem the second, this problem third, this problem fourth. With what, I don't know, but we will.
Exactly.
Anyway, let me show you one more case study. Again, I can't tell you who the client is, but it's a corporate innovation project with a bank, and they were very good at the briefing. They asked us to basically create a new savings account for them, and particularly they wanted to target a demographic of people that save anything from $500 to $2,000, right? Even sometimes even less than 500. They're just getting started on their kind of saving journey, right? And the immediate thing that you think of, and what the commercial team were working on, was okay. If we want to create a better savings account, we need to give a higher interest rate. And it sounds logical, but when you stop and look at the data and stop and talk to the users, you realize that that wasn't the case. When we talked with these people that are getting started, that have small amount of savings, they don't see interest rate as hitting the bottom line. If I have £200 or $200 in my bank account, and you're offering me 5% instead of 2%, when you look at it on the bottom line at the end of the year, we're talking about cents. It's not significant. It's not going to make any difference at all. These are not like wealthy investors. We're not talking about significant amounts. And we also looked at the data. The bank had two accounts: a savings account that gave something like 2.5% interest rate, and I think it was called a professional account
Oh yeah, yeah,
that gave
yeah.
5% out. And you could create, there was no additional requirement to be a professional account or a savers account. They asked you which one do you want, and people would say the savers account. People didn't even look at the interest rate when they were creating the account. They didn't care. And when you talk to them, they didn't care because it doesn't make the difference. I think one person told me, look, what I make, I make. It's little money, and this interest rate doesn't make any difference. So I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to worry about making sure that the money is safe. I want to worry about being able to have access to the money and so forth. And we sat there and thought, okay, how can we make a savings account more palatable for this target audience in particular? And when you step away from the concept of interest rate, you can start thinking about doing things in a different way. And what we did was basically creating a weekly raffle. And what we did is we imagined that we would give 5% interest rate. What we would do is everybody in this account type, we would grab those 5% that everybody made, put them into 3 or 4 prices, and then raffle those prices associated to you get more tickets if you saved more, and if you save this week, we are like promoting and helping people save and giving them an incentive to save. And the scores were off the charts because we're talking, having 1 in 1,000 chances of getting $1,000, or getting 50p at the end of the month. What do you prefer? People prefer the odds, prefer the
Exactly.
idea
Yeah.
of um, being able to get something that is significant. On top of that, there was all these rules about whether if you save, you get more chances. The more you save, the more chances you get. And we are basically helping people or incentivizing people to save, which is kind of what the interest rate is trying to do, right? The interest rate, the better the
Exactly.
interest rate, the more you have in there, the more you make. It's trying to do that. But when there's small amounts, it makes no sense.
Totally.
So we made it sense in some way, right?
Exactly.
And again, if we would have started with the original concept, savings accounts, better interest rate, I would have to sit down with the commercial team and negotiate the best possible interest rate, and then create a marketing campaign that showcases a 6%, and the people look at and say, "I don't care."
Yeah, they're like, man, what does it matter to me? Yeah.
You know, um, and it makes total sense, and everybody would, it would have gone through the corporate team, and everybody would have thought, "Oh, this is a great idea, right? Let's just make a higher interest rate." Um, and it wasn't the case. We built, a consumer waiting list of over 1,500 users in less than a week,
Hmm.
just by showcasing this new value proposition that incentivizes you to save, and that instead of giving you 3% or 5% or 6% a year, it gives you chances to win something that would be significant to you in the case you win it.
I think
Um,
I think I just want to make a point here, which I think is great about this particular case study, is that everyone was so focused about thinking inside the same box that they've always thought in, and just as if there was no even opportunity at all to create a product that would appeal to savers in a different way, or that there was even the possibility to do that. And I think what we were able to show here in this case, by not investing in the solution straight away, but instead investing in the problem, is to show there's a completely different way to compete in this market than what they had been originally considering. And one of the standout values of innovation is being able to create these blue ocean opportunities in spaces that people had previously considered to be a race to the bottom. Everyone's just thinking about what they can do to slightly increase the interest rate in order as if that's the only mechanism available to them in order to attract customers. And what we were able to show by helping them to invest in the problem first is that there isn't the only available mechanism at all. And that we can create something that isn't a race to the bottom, but instead provides them with some other appeal which can help them to attract the capital that they were looking to into their bank. So for me, this is it really underscores the value of focusing on the problem first, rather than just
yeah,
defaulting to the solution, especially when there's a well-established solution in place and people are not really challenging the status quo at all. It means that
yeah.
you're not really innovating in any way if you do that.
The other important point is, for the two cases that we talked about, I'm not talking about digital. I'm not talking about apps. I'm not. We did build an app, and it was app based, and it was 100% digital. But it's not about that.
That
You
wasn't the
know, it's
innovation.
about the
Yeah, yeah,
fact. Exactly, the innovation is the fact that we ruffle every week, and people
exactly.
get notified that they won, and they record a video, and we post it on social, and we tag them, and they tag us, and it's viral. The innovation is that this we're asking kids questions about what they want to be, and if they say I don't know, it's like, well, if you knew, what would you do? What
Mm.
don't you want to be? How do you see
Yeah,
yourself in the
yeah, yeah.
future? Some of the questions we were like, imagine you run into a friend that you've not seen in 30 years when you are 30. What would you tell them? That's a great question. Imagine you are 30 years older and you've not seen your best friend. You saw him yesterday the last time, and you meet them again. So carte blanche.
Yeah.
Tell me what you did in the last 30 years. Yeah, these are the kind of things. It's the question that's
Hmm.
valuable, not the app. It's the method. It's the system that you build. You use technology to
Exactly.
deploy it. But I've never
Exactly.
pitched
That's
this
it.
as an app. Never.
Exactly.
This is a better savings account for people that save, less than $2,000. And
The
that's the
fact that
key
it's
of it.
exactly the fact that we're using that technology, the fact that we're deploying it as an app is totally incidental to the solution at the end of the day and what the value proposition is about.
Completely.
Yeah.
It's just a better way to do it economically. But if you ask me,
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather, do it with cards that are colorful, and we'll show the card, the winner that has this card. I don't know. There's much more fun ways of doing it than an app. It's
Yeah.
just more cost effective to do it through digital, and that's why we do it for digital, because it's
Mm-hmm.
the easiest way to do it. But it's not the innovation. The channel is not the innovation in this case.
Yeah.
Um, so let's move to the next one, which is the next big challenge is most people say, yeah, right, but it's hard to get executive buying, and that's why we work on product first, because we know we can create a mock-up and show it to people and get people excited. And that's
Yeah.
where I really, I really disagree. I've done this several times. I've made this mistake of thinking that some UI would get people excited and that it would make it more tangible for them to understand what we're talking about because they can't visualize it. There's only one thing that gets business owners excited and that can get you buy-in, and that is traction.
Totally.
That is showing there is a business behind this. That's why we don't build UI mockups. We build waiting lists.
Exactly.
Build a waiting list. You want to get corporate buy-in? Build a 2,000 people waiting list and go to the corporate and say, guys, we had this idea. We studied the market. We had this product idea. We presented it to the market. And I have 2,000 people that had told me that if we build it, they would buy it. They're waiting for us to build it. I'm not asking you money to invest in my idea. I'm asking you money so that we can sell them what we promised them already. It's a much, much, much different conversation that you're going to have with the business. Why? Because you're talking business. You're
Exactly.
asking them to enable you to deploy something that you've already created, which is this waiting list, right? And you have some indication of the traction. Don't get me wrong, 50% of the people that you get on a waiting list will eventually churn. I want to say that again. 50% of the people you get on a waiting list will eventually churn. These are not clients. And I'm not trying to sell it as we have 2,000 clients. We have 2,000 people in a waiting list. It allows us to understand what's the appetite of the market regarding the product that we've come up with.
Exactly.
But it's not sales. And I don't try to sell it as sales. But it's much better than having a UI that nobody's ever used. And it's like a clickable prototype that showcases how nice this app would be, and it will get executive buyers excited. Executive buyers are
Mm-hmm.
excited about business. And a waiting list is much more traction than a UI.
Yeah. The UI proves absolutely nothing about the validity of the idea and the solution and the way that you've conceived it and everything like that. Nothing. Yeah.
Exactly. Which is the biggest killer, right? Go back to the beginning of this presentation. You got 26% chance of success because the biggest killer is no market need. And I've just proven that there is market appetite for what we've created. And when I say
Exactly.
created, I say created the value proposition. There is nothing on code. You can't use
Mm-hmm.
anything of that. It's all value prop. It's all words in black and white. And still, people want to buy it. And they add themselves to the waiting list. And
Yeah.
that's the key. We've created waiting lists sometimes without even a landing page,
Yeah. Just the ads. Yeah.
just the ads. And it
And I
sounds
think
so
that
good that people are willing to put their email down and say, please contact me when you have this done.
I think it just shows the power of when you understand the problem and you design a specific feature to address that problem, basically, in other words, to reduce or even remove that struggle entirely. That is what creates value for people. That's what appeals to them. That's what they see. Gosh, if I had that, this is how much easier my life would be. I can just imagine it already. There are just test yourself next time you're looking. You're reading about some product or new software feature or whatever else. You'll be like, oh my god, that's exactly what I need. That's the sort of reaction you want out of people, right? That is exact. Oh my god, if I had that, that's what we're talking about. It's not the oh yeah, table stakes, table stakes. That's what I thought anyway. No big deal, no big deal. No one gets excited about that. That's not creating real value in terms of innovation. And that's what we want, and what we want to be able to prove, and what the waiting list helps us to prove is that we have something really appealing, something that really resonates
Yeah.
with the audience, something that's really worthy of further investment. Um, because no investment is ever made in a vacuum, of course, and
Yeah.
everyone is looking at the relative, appeal of each investment and the relative payback and how promising it is, and all this thing. We need to give them a greater sense of promise. We need them to
Yeah.
give them a greater degree of certainty. We need to give them more confidence that investing in this next stage of this product development is going to be worth it, because we already have significant evidence in the form of traction in a waiting list that this is something that people are going to adopt and use. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And that one more thing, just one more, which is most people think that building a waiting list is a mechanical process of creating a good advert
Mm,
and a good landing page. And I want to communicate this right now. That's not right. Okay. The only, like, the heavy lifting in building a waiting list is crafting a value proposition that people find desirable, right? And we do that over a period of weeks, if not months. And we build waiting lists in a period of 4 to 8 days.
mm. Sometimes, yeah, it's that quick. That's true. Yeah.
Is it is all about refining that value proposition. And the way we do it is we create a version of it and we present it to the market and we see how they react. We ask for feedback. We ask for desirability. How desirable is this feature to you? And one of the key things that we do is we say that you're not allowed to really start a waiting list until you've sold your product 10 or 20 times. And the way we do that is we present ourselves as trying to get feedback from a value proposition, presenting the value proposition very structuredly, and then being quiet and kind of wrapping up the session and we see what the user says. Some users will stop you. It's like, okay, thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Guys, a question. It's like, yeah, are you going to build this product? I was like, yeah. Why? It's like, I would be interested in using it.
Hmm.
That
Unsolicited
is when
feedback,
you
right?
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. That's when you know that you got something that they really want. They're not being polite. They're interrupting you. They found what you presented so interesting that they really want it in their lives. They want to try it, right? These are a group of people that are trying to get an outcome done. They're struggling. And when you come and show them what you're building, they say, I like this. And they
Mm-hmm.
interrupt you to get access to the product. And when we do that 10 times, and 10 people tell us, yeah, by the way, are you running a pilot? How is it? We might mention that we're going to be running a pilot. We don't even invite them. We wait until they say, by the way, if can you give me access to the product? I will be very keen to take a look.
Mm-hmm.
Then, only then, you can build yourself a landing page. Because before that, trust me, you have absolutely no idea what words to put in that landing page.
Yeah, it's so easy to become self-deluded when you're working on products, and to sort of convince yourself that what you've got really resonates when actually you have no real evidence that that's the case, and all you have is sort of the polite feedback of certain people you may have asked who are not really in a position to critique, and even if they were, they're not really in a position to give you the direct feedback that would actually be the most valuable thing for you to get at that point, so you could course correct on where you're going with the
Yeah.
product. So,
We've we've done thousands of interviews, and it's very normal that we both go into an interview and we are like finishing it, and we both look at each other and it's like that wasn't an honest feedback. You know,
mm,
you can tell now, but
mm,
yeah, it's a bit tricky sometimes.
yeah. But wrapping this up, though, if we just go to the next one here, um, basically the key points that we want you to take away. Well, you got this one, JP.
Yeah, is that you don't. It doesn't have to be like Mark. Like you don't have to run the dice. It's not a numbers game here. You don't need 34 products in a year to get one that is good, right? Um, and the key thing that you need to do is you tend to turn the light on when you're designing. And the only way to turn
Hmm.
the light on is to have an acute understanding of how people struggle. And I'm talking about how they struggle mechanically. I'm not talking about a PwC report that showcases that 70%
Sorry,
of
PwC.
shoppers will consider a product if there is an alternative that has more biodiversity and supports the rights of Latinos in the UK. I'm talking about real mechanical struggle, things that people find difficult to do. And then your feature addresses that problem, that particular struggle. If you understand that, the light turns on and you can start designing things that resonate with people and that people want to buy.
Totally.
So a bit of a roundup.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Darren.
yeah. So remember, we're talking about putting your board, putting yourself, putting your team in a position to invest with confidence, right? To have a degree of certainty that taking the next step with this product is going to actually result in something. So that's why we recommend and always follow ourselves investing in an understanding of the problem first before you consider investing anything at all in the solution. And there are so many ways to validate, to understand the problem and to validate the problem and even to validate the solution without building anything, not even UI mockups. That's the point that JP was making earlier. When you do invest in the problem, you can turn the light on, JP says, you can finally see clearly where the real opportunities are for innovation, where the real opportunities are for creating value with a new product that addresses specific problems that either have not been addressed well yet or have not been addressed at all. Right? They may even give you a completely different way to approach the problem, like what we described in the case study about the bank. Right? Everyone is in a race to the bottom. We were over here creating an engaging game-like experience that attracted thousands of new people in a week or two onto the waiting list. If you do take this approach, you'll be in a much better position to win that corporate backing and sponsorship and to get the executive buy-in you in to make the next round of investment, call it that, if you want to think in startup terms, into this digital product or startup idea that you're building now, right? You've got the traction, you've got the evidence with the waiting list that there will be adoption, which is the key point. And that's what gives confidence and certainty people to take the next step. You want to show in a way that they can understand that there will be an impact on the bottom line because of the adoption that you have already proved is highly likely with the solution that you've already begun to validate based on the problem as you now understand it. That's the key. So if we invest in the problem and we understand it and we know what problems are worthwhile to solve, we can design a solution that we can be confident is really going to resonate with the audience, and we can validate that through a waiting list, for example, that will give us certainty that there is an audience out there resonating with the solution we have now defined. That's the key. So what we can do for you based on everything that you've learned here is that we are offering anyone who's here today the opportunity to contact us and sit down for 45 minutes to walk through whatever digital product idea you may be thinking about today, so that we can give you the opportunity to benefit from all of the different experience and learnings that we have to point out what might be the hidden obstacles or gotchas that you're going to experience trying to bring that product to market. We'll talk to you about the way that we would approach it. What is the methodology that we would use in order to ensure that you are focused on the problem first, then the solution, and taking this traction first approach that is going to allow you to ensure the ultimate success of this product. So that's a call that we can do with you for 45 minutes to critique the product that you're working on at the moment and give you a blueprint that you can follow in order to take that product to market successfully. If you're interested in that, get in touch with us and we'd be very happy to schedule that session. And with that, thank you very much for your time and see you again next time.